This lesson is for preschool and enrichment. Inspired by the great outdoors once again, walking around our neighborhood, we saw all sorts of leaves. I'm wondering if you know what those are called. For those of you who don't know, they're called dandelions, and they're usually considered a weed, but they actually are quite pretty and very interesting. So I have a couple of samples here, Sophia, if you want to zoom in a little bit. So this is what the dandelion looks like at the beginning when you first see it in your yard. It's yellow and it has some sort of spiky petals, all right? And then kind of the second stage is it turns into something like this. It's very puffy, all right? Looks very see-through. And then finally, when all those little puffs blow off, you see something that looks kind of like this, and it still has some of the little green leaves coming down on the bottom, and they're also in there when you look at the big puff ball. Those little leaves are turned down at the bottom of the bulb. Okay, so how we're going to do this is, let's go over our supply list first. You're going to need a piece of colored paper, and for my sample I used a very bright orange. But my demonstration today, I'm going to use a blue piece of paper, and these I actually cut from a piece of scrapbooking paper. You could also use construction paper, or you could also just have plain white paper, although I don't think the puff of our dandelion would show up very well on just a solid white paper. So I would recommend using some sort of colored paper. If you have cardstock, that's always wonderful, and this could also be made into a card. So, colored piece of paper, and mine is about 6 inches by 10 inches. Water for rinsing your brush or your finger. We have the paints that we will be needing today. Again, any type of paint would work, although watercolor would be very difficult. Best to have acrylic or tempera, and we will need green, white, and brown, small paintbrush, paper towel, something to put your paints on, a lid or a paper plate always work well, and we do not need nail polish. I forgot that this was here. Okay, and also you don't need glasses unless you really need glasses. These are mine. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with my colored piece of paper. And the first thing I'm going to do is, I'll keep this one right next to it so you can see the sample while I'm doing it. We're going to start with our brown paint. And we don't need a lot, it's just a little bit, okay? That probably is even enough. And you can see that in my sample, I've decided to make 3 of the dandelions. And I kind of like things in collections of odd numbers. So 1, 3, or 5 could work. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take my pointer finger. I'm going to dip it in my brown paint. So we're finally getting to do a little finger painting, which is always fun. All right, so you can see what my finger looks like with the paint on it. And this time I think I'll do 5 of them. So I'm going to start with one kind of up here. All right, there's one. I might need a little more paint on my finger. Put one here, one here, one here, and one kind of short one. Okay, so I've got the beginnings of my dandelion. So I'm going to take my finger, swish it around in the water. All right, get that paint off, and then I can just dry my fingers on my paper towel. Next thing I'm going to do is paint this long stem that you can see in our dandelions here, and the little leaves are petal, they're sort of green petal-ish kind of a leaf that hangs off the bottom, okay? So I need a little bit of green paint. Again, we don't need a lot of paint. This takes very little paint. I have found that when I do the stem, if my paintbrush is a little bit wet and my paint is a little bit more watery, it's easier to do that long stem because it's a pretty long stem. All right, so now I've got quite a bit of paint on my brush. Let's see how this works. I'm going to start with this one and have it come down near the bottom. Oh, there's my kitty making noise again. All right, here's another one. Make that one come down. Let this one come right between those two. A little more paint on my brush now. One coming here. And my last one here. All right, so I've got some nice looking stems. Now let's put some of those little leaves coming off the bottom. And you can just put a few near the bottom of the bulb for each one. It's just a real small little stroke. Kind of fun to practice doing this with your paintbrush. All right. All right, so looking pretty good so far. I also want to add a little bit of grass at the bottom. And if you look closely at the sample, you can see that I have a couple of different shades of green. I have kind of a brownish green, a medium green, and then a lighter green. So in order to get those colors, I'm going to have to mix my paints, which is always fun. Let's put a little bit of white on our, I'll put it over here. We don't have a lot of white, so I'm just gonna have a very little amount. There we go. All right, so I'm going to start painting with just my medium green and put some strokes down here that are supposed to kind of represent grass. Again, you can be very kind of quick with this. All right, so I think I've got a good amount of medium there. Now I'm going to make my a little bit lighter shade of green. So here we go. I'm going to put some white in it. All right, that's a little lighter green, so let's go with that one. I'll put some of those in there as well. Just kind of using my brush to make it look like grass. Have some of it go off the page, I think, too. All right, I like how that looks so far. Now I want a little darker green, so I'm going to add a tiny bit of this brown to my green. Not too much, just to make it look a little darker. All right. Let's try that. Put a few strokes of that in there. Okay, I think I like the way that looks. Let me just stop right there. A little bit more. All right. Okay, so now I've got some grass that I'm happy with. So now the final part is making the puff of the dandelion. So we're going to put a little more white paint on our palette. Okay, there's a little bit more white. And this time we're going to use our pinky finger, all right? So, and we don't need very much, just a tiny bit, all right? And then you can also kind of tap some of it off if you get too much, all right? I'll start with, I think I'll start over here, all right? And that maybe has a bit much of paint on, because you kind of want to get the sense that this white is very see-through. If you look at the actual dandelions, it's very see-through, transparent. All right. Oops. Do I need to put
Yeah, you need to
further like that?
back.
Okay, oh sure. Okay. All right, so, and you can see that the shape, if you look at the real ones, it's a perfect sphere or circle. Just so cool. All right, I'm gonna put some on top of the ground too. All right, I think I kind of like that one. Let's move on to maybe this one. And sometimes when you look at dandelions, some of the puff part has already blown away. And I'm guessing that you've learned about this in science, that this is really the way that the dandelion spreads. Those are little seeds in there. And so every time these blow away and land someplace else, another dandelion has an opportunity to grow. Right, so this one I'm going to make it as though some of it has blown away, and I'll just make it blowing away. All right, so there it goes, right off the paper. Okay, so that one I'm just going to have half of it there, and half of it has disappeared and blown away. You can see that my brown paint is a little bit wet still in the middle, so I'm kind of avoiding touching that part so I don't end up with brownish white puff part. All right, so So I'm going to come back and I'll put some white on there in just a minute, kind of at the end. All right, let's do our last one. And this one too, I think I'm going to have part of this one missing, that it's already blown away, and I'll have it blowing this way off the paper. Okay. Okay, your pinky works really well for this. What do you think, Soph? Does it look like I have enough?
I think so.
Oh, I was going to come across the middle of this because I could see that there was a little wet there, but that's okay. There we go. All right. I think I'm happy with the way that looks, so I'm going to stop there. All right. So now you can see how they do look quite different when you have the different colored background. And you can also make the decision, the choice to make as many dandelions on your paper as you like. But as I said before, I kind of like the odd number of dandelions. So this time I did 3, and this time I did 5. Okay. All right. So once again, I hope that everyone has fun finger painting with this particular project, and please send in photos to Northside because I sure would love to see what you're doing. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your week. Bye.